It's just going to be a short divine nugget, mostly because my phone is low on battery right now. um, but, I'm noticing, I want to say, an upward trend on some energy that I was picking up on already. I know I've been mentioning we've had a lot of sacral chakra stuff coming up, but I'm seeing a lot more of it coming up, and it's interesting because what's that song? I hear the secrets that you keep. Hear you talking in your sleep. I know that's not the right order for that song, but it's kind of that vibe. I might do a reading about it later. But it really feels like a time of confessions and not just confessions, but there are many things that we don't talk about, mostly because we're afraid of what people will think about us and because we're afraid of judgment or what we did and we're afraid that we won't be forgiven. Process to forgiveness will be very, very hard. And you know what? There are some times in life that yes, there are certain people you can't necessarily do the light work with. You can't necessarily talk with them about what you want to talk with them about and even it out because even if all the elements involved are very human, the person's not on that vibe yet. But you know what? Don't lock them in there, and don't lock yourself in there that it'll always be that way. If you find yourself in a situation where you're pretty positive that you can't say something to someone that you would like to give comfort to, or receive comfort from, or get forgiveness from, or give forgiveness to, then just ask Spirit to help you get to a place to where you guys can line up on the right timeline and the right place and space and mindset where it's all good, you know? And in any case, though, the big thing that I'm really getting a sense of is most of this revealing secrets stuff is about sexuality. It's about stuff that happened when we were little that really shouldn't have happened. It's about stuff that happened when we were young adults that we probably blame ourselves for because we didn't say no or we didn't open our mouths or we did open our mouths or, or we didn't want to be unliked by other people or we thought that it was the right thing to do at the time. A whole number of things. It really feels like it's an energy to do with. This is almost becoming a daily vibe spin. It's funny. It feels like it has a lot to do with sexual trauma, a lot of sacral chakra stuff. Which, while that can seem icky at the first go around, it actually feels like it's going to be really majorly healing for the collective because there's a lot of that shadow stuff in there. The nice thing about shadow work is kind of the same as light work. It's when you dance, you dance with your shadows. You learn their moves. You learn how those shadows make you move and do things like that. And then you, it's weird. My phone's being very weird. Hmm. I'm getting a weird call from a savings company. Um, it's we learn how to dance with our shadows, how they make us move, how we play into those loops and cycles, and then, we say a parting farewell, and there might be a little bit left over of them as a parting gift, but it's never going to be the same big tango and foxtrot that we did with those shadows the first time we really go and face them. And I think it's really important, no matter what it is that you are afraid to talk about, that you find a place where you feel safe talking about it. Because being disingenuous in any way, it really weighs on you. And nobody's 100% honest. Nobody's gonna, nobody doesn't lie. Like, there's always, even if it's a lie to yourself, it's still, everybody lies, everybody has dishonesties. But the more you have, the more that becomes kind of your emotional baggage, so to speak, It becomes that weight that you carry around. And whenever you go somewhere, you're always kind of wondering, can people tell? Can people tell that somebody did that to me? Can people tell that I did that thing because of the things that were done to me? Can people tell that I'm reserved for this reason? It's always in the back of your mind, even if you're compartmentalizing it. And then you often end up putting out a vibration of not being an honest and safe person to talk to, even if you're honest about everything else. And on top of that, it's just really profound when you trust yourself enough to open up and talk about things that you're afraid to talk about because you think that you won't have space held for them. And yeah, you're going to run into people that either they're not on that vibration, or when you bring it up, it reminds them of their shit and they're not ready to talk about it. And even some people that you're going to get plenty of people that are just like, oh, it's all good. The storm will pass. It's darkest before the dawn. And I mean, a lot of those sayings are very true and they are very meaningful. But when you're hurting and you've not yet released things, they don't really help you. Sometimes you have to feel the feeling before you can let the feeling go. You have to actually dance with the shadow before you can say farewell to it, you know? But the more you open up and the more people that you tend to say, hey, I really want to talk about this thing. Are you a person I can talk to this about? You're going to find that you run into your soul tribe pretty quickly that way. You might run into a couple of karmic friends too in the process, but you'll notice even if that creates a few more shadows, that it helps you get to the ones that you were looking for in the first place. So it all ends up good in the end. And as you continue to do that and you work on that, you become lighter. And as you become lighter and less afraid to tell your story, and other people hear about your story, here's where the real magic happens. You help other people do the same thing. And as they do the same thing, then that ripple effect takes effect, and more people become less ashamed of sharing what's happened to them. They stop, yes, there's a certain extent when you're doing shadow work where you look for the blame, you look for the origin, but then you grow beyond that because you realize it's generations have been going on with this, where, you have empathy for those who even committed said acts, and once that truly, genuinely happens, all future generations are affected. More and more people start speaking up. More and more people start feeling like they can talk about their story, and then other people don't feel so alone. And then we see far fewer incidences of like suicide or ideation of it, things like that. It's really powerful if you're willing to speak your story. I don't want to say most effectively, or most specifically, if you have children, sharing your story with your children without putting the burden on them. Just simply letting them know, hey, as mom or as dad, I have these feelings. I've had these feelings too. Sometimes I have them now, or I don't have them as much now as I used to. But oftentimes we kind of try to project that we are this perfect, never weak version of human beings to our kids, and that makes them feel like crap and alone, very alone. So, yes, share your story with your kids too. You know, when it's appropriate, when they're old enough, things like that. You'll know when the right time is. All right, I'm going to leave this nugget here, and if you have any questions or comments, you know where to leave them. I'll catch you next video.